Hey everybody, Sherry here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to do a very simple sewing tutorial that does have some very deep basics that if even if you've sewn for a while, you may actually get something out of this. I've had several people in the comment section ask me to please either do a tutorial on sewing or to show them how to thread a machine. So this is going to be for a person if you've never picked up a sewing machine before. And one thing I want to point out right at the beginning is that this tutorial is not, you're not going to watch this and be able to sew a three-piece suit or follow a pattern. This is not about that kind of sewing. It's about upcycled sewing, about being able to make a machine work and to understand, like, if you're having issues with tension, how to get that set properly and how to do a very basic stitch. So let's get into it. So there are different kinds of machines. This is the older one I have, and I'll start with it, but I'll show you a newer one too because they have a different kind of tension that is more difficult to mess up. And I don't know that either one is better. I have problems with both of them, and they actually kind of both will do the same thing, that if I go too fast, it will throw the bottom thread out of the tensioner. So what is tension? Let's just start with threading, okay, on this type of machine. The basic concept is you have a thread and you're going to put, the first thing you're going to notice is that there's going to be something that'll hold that thread. On this machine, it's a looper. Pull it out. It's back here. But there will be something, it might be up here somewhere, that will guide the thread into something that sets the tension. And when I say tension, let me show you. Let me grab, well, I could probably even show you with this. If I want to make a knot like this, right, which a machine is making a knot. Imagine trying to make a knot but only pull on one, or pull just a tiny bit on one. It's not going to make a knot. You have to, when you make a knot, you have to what? You have to pull equal tension to make that knot. Right? So that's what we do on a sewing machine. We're going to, your bottom thread and your top thread have to have some tension on them. Every time the needle comes down and loops, then it's going to have tension to pull that knot to the right tightness. Too loose on either side will make one side of the knot sloppy. So, which can be used. You can set it to where it can make it loose on the top, so you can actually do a gather. So there's also advantages to being able to adjust your tension. So in this machine, your bottom thread is down here in this, what's called, on the bobbin and in the bobbin holder. Okay? And I'll see if you see this here. This little screw sets the tension for this thread. The more that's screwed down, the tighter this piece will squeeze your thread. So if you have too loose of a tension on the bottom, you can go turn right, righty-tighty, remember lefty-loosey? So you will turn to the right, and that will put more tension and make this harder to pull out. Okay? And on the top, on this one, the tension is a dial. I have a dial here and a plus and a negative. And that squeezes these two little metal things together, so when your thread slides through, it will put more pressure on that thread. So then think about, in order to make this knot, you have to send this thread, like I'm putting my thread through the looper on the back. That's to guide it through this, these little metal tension area. And then I need to be able to guide it through the needle. So now I do, and this also helps pull out enough for a stitch. So okay, so now I've got it there, and I'll do another machine to show you the same thing. Now I got to guide it to the needle. Now I'm going down to my needle, and then I'm going to put it through the needle. Okay, and now I've got my. Before I do that, I'll show you here. And put my to put the bottom bobbin in. You pull this out, and when you do that, oops, it can't pull out. I didn't time it right. Hold on. Rescue operation. I was going to show you that it can't fall out, but I didn't time my pull on that right. And I have heard some people say that their machines will only work with a metal bobbin. So if you are having trouble, try using, instead of these plastic ones, try using a metal one. Okay, so I popped it in there. I'm going to pull it through that crack and through this slit. And what my machine will do if I go too fast, for some reason, it will take this thread and put it out here and mess up on me. I don't know why it does it. So anyways, you're going to pull. See, when you got it like this pulled tight, it can't fall out. And with it pulled, you're going to put it in there, and you'll feel kind of, and then you're going to let loose, and it will be in there tight. And you see, let me make sure you can see this. When I rotate, the needle goes down, and it should catch that, right? That bottom thread, and that's how we make a stitch. If you have trouble, like it'll make a straight stitch but not a zigzag, that usually has to do with the height of your needle. And I don't want to really get into that because there's an adjustment on your shaft that needs to be made. And there are videos that show how to do that, but that's a little complicated for this one. Okay, so I'm going to thread my needle. And yes, you did see me lick it. Okay, here we go. I'm going to go down, grab my bottom thread, and see, up it goes. Now I've got both threads up. Now how do I know I have the right tension? Like, how can I tell? One way is I could just sew a strip, right? And I could see which side looks sloppy. But there's actually another way. And here's what you need to do. You can do it, I do it with the foot on or off. On this one, the foot comes off different than most machines. It comes off in a shank. Most of them don't do that. But you can drop your foot, okay? When you drop your foot, that puts this pressure is on. With it dropped, make sure with threads going the same way, pull on this one and then pull on this one. They should be very, very similar. They should be very, like pull on this one, pull on this one. They should feel very close. If your tension is about the same on both, then you know you're in the ballpark. Like you're right there. They don't have to be exact, but they need to be quite similar. Most feet don't come off this way. It makes it a little hard for me to put attachments onto this one, by the way. This little machine is so old, but I just love him. He's just a sweet little machine. So now we're going to go to a different machine. Okay, so this is my Singer Heavy Duty, and I do have trouble with it sometimes skipping stitches. But it actually, and I've had to adjust the side, because I hit something really hard, and it got the shaft in there out of alignment. But I've got it pretty much back. I can pretty much trust it. So I'm going to show you how you thread it. We're under the same principle of, I'll show you here. First, we need to guide our thread in. So on top here, I'm going to tilt it towards you. And the newer ones actually have little diagrams. So here's the first place my thread would come through. Then it's going to go here. See the arrow? This is for bobbin winding, so I won't use it. But I'll show you how this goes. So I'm going to come in through there, and now the tension is right here. The little two pieces of metal that come together to put pressure on my string are inside there. And this is how I can adjust, and it says on it tension. So then I'm come down, see I've got me an arrow, and I'm going to go back up, and you got to go through this one. And it's nice that it's got a thing also that keeps the thread from just unlooping off. And then I'm going to go down, and in this one you have to go here, and then you go through, I don't know if you can see that. You'll go through this one, and then you go through this one, and then it has an automatic threader, which is very nice. You do have to have the needle set just right. You go like that. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I've had it get out of alignment. It's very handy, okay? And then, but on the bottom bobbin, the newer ones are like this. You have a little door, and for your bottom tension is almost all automatic. So you really don't have a lot of control. There's a little bit, like you have a little bit of control. You can take this whole thing out, and there's a screw on the side there. And it's quite easy to put in. You're going to put your bobbin in, and there is a little slit there, and you're just going to pull it through that slit and then put your little lid back on. And then we're going to go to the first step you do before you go to make a stitch is you're going to go down and grab your bottom thread and pull that bottom thread out. Oh, good heavens, I got the wrong side. I'm wasting thread here, but I'll show you. And you're going to clip them to about 6 inches long. You don't want it too short because on your first stitch, it's going to pull some of that and it might just pull all the thread out of your needle and then you have to rethread. So after 6 inches, then you're going to put it behind the machine like that. That way when you start sewing, you put your material in there because that needle is looking for a thread. If you have your thread out front like this or off to the side kind of sloppy, it's liable to grab either one of these and just make a big knotted mess. So what you do is you put your strings behind like that and then you'll start sewing. So I'm going to sew on this other one since I've got the electric here for it. And I'll show you how to make your very first stitches. Okay, so we've got our machine threaded now. And we did the tension test. And I've got pretty much the same on both. It doesn't have to be exact, but you can tell in your stitch which side isn't pulling its weight. You know, which one's not doing the best. And as long as they're closed, you can make a fairly good stitch. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make a stitch. My suggestion is whatever garment you're going to sew, whatever fabric you're going to sew, don't just jump right in to that fabric. If you're making, if you're making something that's mostly cotton, get a similar weight fabric, even if you're doing an upcycle, and do a test stitch to make sure your stitch is going to work. So here, I'm going to start with a straight stitch. Find my foot pedal. They always run away out of me. I'm going to find my foot pedal here. And what you're going to do is you're going to grab your thread, pull it around behind, and set your foot down and then rotate your needle down. And that gives you the best start off on your stitch. I always go forwards and then I usually do lock my stitch and then keep going. That's how I usually do it. And after you've made a few stitches, you don't have to pull on it, you just guide it. And when you first start sewing, go really slow because you're not going to be used to the speed. Take your time. It's just a beautiful time to watch the machine, listen to it. It's very peaceful. And then when you get to the end, I usually do a back stitch to lock my stitch in. And then, let's say my needle's down. You raise your needle up. The higher you raise this needle, the better. Because it releases, when you kick your foot up, it releases your thread better. And you're going to pull it out. And I always pull it out the amount I want it to be behind. Snip it. And then I get used to just quickly putting my thread right back where I need it for the next one. And then you'll inspect your stitches. They should be the same on the top and the bottom, and the length that you want to use. So that's how simple it is. And my suggestion is just to start with simple projects. Don't do really difficult types of fabrics. Don't do, like silk and different things like that. Go with a more cottony flannels, lightweight denims, any cottony type mix, linens. Polycottons are good. And remember that in upcycling, when your stitches aren't perfect and things like that, it actually, to me, it adds to the character. So you don't have to exact 1/4 inch and everything pressed perfect. I love the way it looks in its sort of natural, like handmade looking state. I'm not going to get much more detailed than that because I feel like you can actually take this little bit of information and you can start putting a project together. Once you pin it and clip it and, pin it where you want to sew, and then sew to a pin, pull the pin out, sew to your next little pin, pull the pin out, and remember anything you sew wrong, you have a seam ripper so you can just go back and take it out, and that's how you learn to sew. I remember growing up, my mom she had like a pile of, it was like in a cardboard box, big cardboard box of just scrap fabrics that you could use. You know, you didn't have to ask. You could just use anything in it. And all of us girls had Barbie dolls and things like that. And we had more fun making, you know how hard it is to make Barbie clothes? They're tiny. You know, I can remember sewing, oh, well before I was 10 even. And I think my biggest childhood accomplishment was, I think I requested the pattern. We went to town and it was a pattern of Looney Tune characters. And oh, I must have been 12 or 14 was I was so proud, but I didn't have plush fabric to work with. I worked with like a terry cloth. I wish I had a picture of it. I'd show it to you, but it was like a striped terry cloth. But I made a Sylvester, the cat Sylvester. He was like 3 feet tall. It took me months to put this together, pattern piece by pattern piece. Oh, I was so proud of him. He turned out really good. And I just thought, you know, there was like nothing left for me to accomplish in sewing after this. I mean, I was like an expert now. But I've done some pattern sewing, but I'm telling you that upcycling is much more fun. You don't have to match all the little notches and things like that. It's just so much more fun just to put things together, pin it together, sew it on. So I hope you appreciated this and get some good out of it. And I will see you guys in the next video. Happy sewing.